Good evening. Welcome to all the participants. Today, we are going to have a very interesting discussion on can we harness traditional knowledge for delivering affordable and sustainable solutions. And let me make some disclaimers in the beginning. I'm not saying that traditional knowledge can provide solutions for all problems. I'm also not saying that traditional knowledge can provide solution for most problems. But I'm saying there are some problems to which the solutions provided by traditional knowledge system are reasonably robust. And all of us in our childhood, in our upbringing, have experienced some of these solutions. How come that it is all right for us to experience and benefit from these solutions, but in our role as a scientist, we hesitate in providing a scientific basis of the functional and viable traditional knowledge? My favorite example to begin with is that we all have known that nutmeg, jaifal, is rubbed on a stone with little water and then it is put on the navel of the child when there is a pain or there is a little bit of flatulence. Most of you, I'm not saying all of you, but most of you might have experienced this. Can some people raise their hand, those who have used it in their family, either for themselves or their child, their niece, nephew, their children, anybody? Just can you raise hand if you have used nutmeg paste application at 2? Anybody else? Anybody else in whose family it has been used? 3. Well, I would have expected more, but doesn't matter. At least there are 3 participants here who have used it. And Devika, would you tell me that in your family, was it your grandmother or mother who had used it?
So my mother used it, in several things, while eating or while making medicines and in teas when we are ill, and sometimes we use in making food also.
Yes, it's the powder of nutmeg, a very good flavoring agent. And it also is used for many other ailments. Gayatri, who was using in your family?
Sir, yes, my grandmother passed this information to my mother, and they have, passed it on to us and my siblings also.
Okay. Rocky, just tell me one thing, that this knowledge that you have, what is the background you said? CSIO, you said?
Sir, I am from, yes, sir. But my field is biotechnology.
Biotechnology. All right, good. I was looking for someone from life sciences. And being from life sciences, does it intrigue you that it is such a, first of all, do we have any modern drug delivered through naval route? I may have asked this question before, but let me ask again. Is there any modern drug delivered through naval route? Anybody from life sciences? Or anybody for that matter who has experienced? I mean, all of us have taken medicines in our life. Have you taken any medicine which was delivered through naval route, which was asked to be either drop or paste applied at naval, modern medicine?
No, sir, we haven't.
Now the question arises, here is a very interesting paradox. There is a new drug, new in the sense for the modern medicine. There is a new drug delivery route available. And we don't want to even find the scientific basis, efficiency for which kind of pathways would this route be more efficient in delivering the drug. We are not just interested in finding it out. I mean, you do research and you say that it is not effective. If you had taken orally, it would have been the same thing. I will accept that. But why wouldn't we ask this question? What is holding us up from asking this question? Anybody? ये सवाल पूछ क्यों नहीं रहे हम लोग? Why are we not asking this question? Is it a valid question, first of all? Is it a valid question?
Yes, sir.
Why don't we ask this question? What do you think is the reason that scientists, whether medical scientists or life scientists or scientists who are engaged in drug delivery systems, have not asked this question? What could be? Yes, anybody else? Shrikant, do you have any observation on that? Why don't
Sir,
we
I
ask?
want to add something, sir.
Bolo, sir.
Sir, the one thing which has been observed specifically in Indian scholars is that they have a huge reference of Western culture and other countries' research. And we take the reference from there only. And what we feel is whatsoever is quoted as a reference, as a research paper or patent or in the textbook, that only we refer to as, and we try to work in the same domain. So we rarely try to explore new dimensions. It is specifically in the case of Indian scholars, which I have observed, in my opinion, sir.
Okay, maybe there could be some merit in what you're saying, but let me hazard a very different argument. The argument is that we sometimes feel that there will be comment on our professional acumen, our professional expertise. If we took something as simple as this, it is not complex enough. It is simple, isn't it? One single ingredient, so there's not a polyherbal solution, single ingredient delivered through a very simple route, no complication, no extraction, just rub it on a stone or make a little paste. Because of its simplicity, does science, particularly science that we pursue, get inhibited, get timid, get restricted when apparent solution is simple? Is there merit in this argument? Can simplicity be also a reason?
Sir, I have a argument for that. That people do not often do not apply these traditional medicine as their routine course of medicine. Why so? Because people want immediate action, and they do not. That doesn't happen with Ayurvedic medicines and all these things that our ancestral lineage knowledge is carried over. That's the reason.
Okay, let me rephrase my question. My question is twofold. First is, just because a solution is simple to implement, simple to observe, do we feel diffident in working, taking it up for research? Because how can science grow by looking at simple solutions? I mean, E is equal to mc square was a very simple equation. It's not a very complicated equation. It may have required a lot of complication when he derived it. But when you look at it, it is a very simple equation. One of the simplest equations with most profound implications for theory of relativity. So I'm sure the simplicity per se should not be abhorred, should not be made suspect, but could be one reason. And today what we want to discuss is that despite the fact that we have experienced some of the solutions, that we must ask ourselves that what is the process, what is the dynamics of traditional knowledge? Knowledge that is in the backyard, knowledge that is with the tribal communities, knowledge which is available with herders. We were once, I don't know whether, please tell me if I'm repeating something because I sometimes forget. We were in Ladakh and we were having a Shodhyatra. So we were walking with my students and others. And we were in a valley which was not accessible by any other route. So one had to walk many hours to be able to reach the road. So we asked people, what do you do when you get some cuts or wounds? So one of the elderly person opened a small box and took out a thin, dried film. So I said, what is it? So when we slaughter animals, we take the collagen layer below the skin and use this collagen for healing. Now, one student of CLRI, Central Leather Research Institute, I was giving in Iduma Memorial Lecture this year. And I mentioned to the director and the other faculty there and students, some of you might have been there that day, that the student has published an outstanding paper, one of the top journals, on this particular practice. Now, he may not have known it from the traditional communities, possible, or he may have known, I don't know. But it makes sense that you can produce world quality science by identifying the scientific basis of some of the practices. So, for example, umbilical cord, or the thin layer below the egg that you have, that is also collagen layer. Those of you who are egg eater would know. I don't eat, but I'm sure many of you have experienced that below the shell, there is a thin membrane, which is collagen membrane. And if you look at the literature, you will find tons of papers on collagen use for healing properties, regenerating cells, etc. etc. Now, if we had paid attention to the knowledge that our society had, at least in this case, we would have been the pioneer. We would have been the first in the world, probably, to have developed products out of it. But we are not first. We will be second, we will be third, we will be fourth, we will be 10th. So what is the reason? One of the reasons, and I must be forgiven for using this argument, but I will use it. Milkha Singh in Rome Olympics was coming first till the 70th or 80th step in 100-meter race. Then he turned around to look at where were others, and he became fourth. Sometimes we seem to suffer from Milkha Singh syndrome. Milkha Singh incidentally is sick at the moment, but 92-year-old, but a great athlete. And the phenomena which required him to see what others are doing, what others are saying, where others are, made him lose his pioneering, his chance of getting gold medal. And this seems to affect us. This seems to affect us everywhere. So some of you mentioned we take cues from Western publications. Some of you said there's nothing wrong in taking references from Western literature. If they are good and relevant, why shouldn't we take them? Any knowledge which is useful should be referred. Doesn't matter where it is originating. I'm just saying the same rule as we apply to the excellence in science should apply to knowledge of people as well. That's all I'm saying. One line summary of what we are going to talk about today is that if a good, functional, viable relationship between cause and effect exists, then we should pay the same respect to that relationship of knowledge, in whether it comes from traditional knowledge or it comes from modern science. We should not be biased against a knowledge system, which in some respect, I'm not trying to say in all respect, but some respect seems to hold good logic. So let's look at it again as to what are the tensions that we seem to be suffering from. So one of the tension, the key tension that let's say under which all other tensions come in is the aspirational asymmetry. And I have walked in every part of the country, as I told you many times, and I have noticed that people are very generous in sharing their knowledge. So the first question that arises in our mind, should traditional knowledge providers or holders remain poor because they are generous? They're kind. They open up. And we who remain stingy, sometimes we don't even share our ideas with our neighbor. And we should aspire to become rich. So people are being punished for their generosity. What kind of world we want to live in if we don't relish and if we don't put esteem on generosity? Many of you may not realize it, but more knowledge of elders is getting lost in this generation, the current generation, your generation, than ever in the history of humankind. Because never before the connection between grandparents and grandchildren were so weak as they are today. So in our childhood, at least we spent some time with our grandparents. But many of you or your children might not be able to spend as much time because you work in a different city, you don't get leave very often, your research is continuing, so you have no choice but to continue with your research program, which may or may not permit long break. So there could be very professional reason why the children of some of you do not get access to spend time and absorb the knowledge of grandparents or uncles. So there is a connection problem, there is a continuity problem. And many times the children of the knowledge holders don't want to become healer or bone setter or whatever, because they see no future in it. They think that their parents were fools, they served the society and did not become rich. They remained in a hut. They did not ask for payment many times. If somebody paid, all right. If somebody did not pay, they did not complain. I remember once Gopal Bapa, he was called, in Char village in Saurashtra. Once somebody called him, took him on scooter. He was sitting as a pillion to see his animals. And he helped him in healing them. So he did provide some medicine and told them what he should do. And then this person did not have the courtesy to bring him back to his village. So he walked back and he didn't complain. We just came to know from somebody else. Now, this is amazing, but this has happened. And there are many examples of this kind. So therefore, there is a tension here that there is a tension that we don't seem to be encouraging young people in pursuing this. And if we look at this through an abstract framework, then you might find it little helpful as to how it happened. How did the exploitation of the local or traditional knowledge took place in the history? So there are three segments of knowledge domain: community knowledge, individual knowledge, and public domain knowledge. Public domain is knowledge which is known to everybody. So for example, ginger extract mixed with honey will take care of cough to some extent. This is widely known. All over the world, people use it. And it is not a proprietary knowledge. It cannot be called as a knowledge of a particular community. That's fine. Now, how does knowledge move across the domain? So somebody, let's say, a scholar, a scientist, say NBRI or CDRI or some university or some private market, anybody goes to a community and asks them, what are the herbs do you use for strengthening your gums, let us say? That person wants to work on developing a new kind of toothpaste. So people tell him about Vajradanti, people tell him about the bark of walnut and many other such locally known ingredients which make the gum stronger and the teeth brighter. He comes back, he took knowledge, let us say, from some individuals or a community and publishes it in a journal, keeping people, of course, anonymous, just mentioning during our visit to Jammu and Kashmir, we came to know that people use walnut tree bark for polishing their teeth and strengthening their gums. Now knowledge has come in public domain. Hitherto, this knowledge was available with maybe some communities only. So this professor or scientist has become world famous now, let us say for a minute, or at least famous, well endowed. Private companies give him consultancy for helping them design herbal toothpaste. He gets money for sharing knowledge that he obtained actually from the communities, but communities are not in the picture. Or for that matter, individual herbalist who might have given this knowledge to us is not in the picture. So this has been going on for a long time, without the consent, without the involvement we have been able to collect, document, disseminate, or through private channel or commercial channel or public knowledge, the traditional knowledge of our society. It is not just in India that it is happening, world over it has been happening, but in India also it is happening. Does it seem fair, my dear friends? Do you find it fair? Is it okay? Anybody? All right. If it is not okay, then do you think we should create some rules? Amrish has raised a very interesting point. Yes, scientists add value. So let's say in dengue, there are many papers which have shown that if you take the leaf extract of papaya, it reduces the adverse effect of the dengue or the animal, the insect bite and fever caused by that. It's well established. It was traditional knowledge, but scientists have found good reason, and they found that if you make an extract and, as Amrish is saying, isolate the relevant compound and not all of them, maybe its effect may increase. I will not dispute that. Possible. There are many examples where it has happened. After all, quinine came from cinchona, and the knowledge was obtained by the Europeans when they went to settle in North America. From cinchona. So modern medicines have been developed using traditional knowledge. RRL Jammu at that time, one of the first labs way back during British time. What is that? Baramasi, what is called that? That flower, Baramasi. The scientific name I'll get in a minute. Vinca rosy. So vincristine, for example, was one of the first molecule extracted from Vinca rosea, and it was one of the first molecule extracted by modern medicine So my question is that the exchange has been going on between different knowledge systems, and this exchange has been going in a very asymmetrical manner, and the tension is because we have not been fair to each other. Particularly, the formal system is not fair to the informal system. Now let us make one level higher of complexity. So we were in a community in Malnad region of Karnataka, the coffee growing region. We were sitting in a village talking about traditional knowledge and other things. And there was a question came about dog bite, and a person said that I said, do you have a treatment? So one person said yes. I said, how many cases have you treated in the last few months? He said 3. So one young boy got up and said, why are you giving him so much importance? I also know this plant, which he gives. So we said, all right, so let us ask the people present. How many of you went to this young boy for getting the medicine? Everybody laughed. I said, do you realize that it is not enough to have knowledge, but you should also have the expertise to practice it. So this matrix that you see in the diagram, knowledge and practice. Community may have knowledge may be public, knowledge may be with individual. But the skill to practice, to diagnose the problem, to decide the dose, to decide how many times it has to be given, with which carrier should it be given? Should it be given with milk? Should it be given with butter oil? Should it be given with buttermilk? How should it be delivered? May be known to the individual only, may be known to the community, may be known to everybody, but sometimes may not be known to everybody, may be only known to one individual. In which case, the right of that individual who either has knowledge and expertise both, or has at least expertise in practicing it, even if knowledge is available with others, cannot be at par with the knowledge that other people possess but do not know how to use it. So expert knowledge, just like we have some specialists in our labs, we have some people who are greatly respected for their mastery in certain either skills or certain knowledge domains. Dr. Gagandeep Kang, who is on our board, is a renowned virologist. So her voice counts, former director of TKDL. And surely in her domain, there are few people in the country who would match her expertise. She's also FRS. Now, similarly, there are experts in the traditional knowledge system. And we cannot, by using the same analogy, argue that their knowledge rights are similar. So let us look at now, let us summarize key tensions and we proceed further. So first is that contemporary improvements in the traditional knowledge and the rights of healer versus community rights, there's a tension. We should recognize that knowledge does not get transferred as if in a fossilized form from, let's say, 10 generations ago to the contemporary generation without any modification. Some knowledge may have continued. A lot of knowledge goes through improvement and modification. Yes, Avinash, there could be many experts, and we should recognize their rights. That's what I'm trying to say. And I will come to that why should we recognize the right? Because if we develop some commercial benefit, commercial solutions, they go to market, if royalty comes and we have to transfer it to the community, yes, since community knows about it and has cooperated with the expert, some share or maybe larger share should go to the community, but some share, extra share should go to those experts who kept the knowledge system alive. Their rights cannot be at par with the national knowledge. Of course, it is a very tricky issue. Sometimes we have to leave it to the community to decide how would they want to incentivize. But remember, if we don't incentivize these experts, would these experts emerge? Some people believe that even without incentives, some people will tend to be great expert because they can't be mediocre. I agree with that notion to some extent, that some of us can't do mediocre job and therefore we have to develop expertise. Some of you are, I'm sure, like that. You cannot do an ordinary thing. You have to be perfect in whatever you try to do. And they maybe your colleagues, your peers may be appreciating you for that. Some of you may adjust with whatever is condition, and that's also fine. I mean, some people are like that. That's okay. Why should we pass judgment on that? But the fact is that not everybody pushes the frontier of practice or knowledge to the same extent. So there are two issues in the first point. One, that the rights of community and the traditional knowledge experts, and we have therefore to go to the second point, that being aware is not equal to diagnose and deliver solutions. So we should recognize some people are very good in diagnosing. Some people are very good in diagnosing and delivering solutions. Third is the asymmetry. So the asymmetry between local knowledge and scientific chronicler, how do we look at that? So imagine now somebody in this meeting, in this class, documents everything that we are discussing and writes a paper summarizing all the arguments, ignoring all of us, you included, those of you who are making a particular point in the class, ignoring all of us, and that paper gets published in his or her name. How would you feel about that? So the question is, the entire discipline of ethnobotany, around the word ethnobiology, you can say, including zoology, emerged on the foundation of this asymmetry. People celebrated, more extractive you were of the traditional knowledge, the more honored and celebrated you became in your profession. Can you imagine? Scientific institutions celebrate exploitation of people and their knowledge system everywhere, not just in India, everywhere, including in India. So this is something that Honeybee Network, of course, emerged to protest. I mean, in our very foundation, our philosophy, the first thing that we wanted to do was that no, you cannot take away the knowledge rights of the people. We often use the term knowledge rich, economically poor people. They were knowledge rich, but they're economically poor. So we did not do that. We did not take care of the chronic, the asymmetry. And this applies not to just traditional knowledge holders. Sometimes this applies to lab attendants. Sometimes this may apply to gardener, who may give a clue to us. And I will give you some examples. The prior informed consent we never took. Now I'm chairing a committee of CSIR. Vishwajanani, director of TKDL, is coordinating that, and we are going to develop some guidelines now for prior informed consent, where we will request all the labs of CSIR and eventually maybe all the labs in the country to use either these guidelines or better guidelines if they wish to recognize the rights of the knowledge. You know, when you go to a doctor and you want to get your TMT test done. Some of you may not need it, but your parents might have needed it. So you took your father or grandfather or mother or grandmother to the doctor, and doctor said, he explains the risk involved, that there are maybe 1 in 10,000 cases or 1 in 100,000 cases when the patient, while going through the TMT test, faces stress and tension or may sometimes succumb. And I'm around to heal that situation, to manage that situation, and we can recover, but this is a possibility. And he tells us 2 or 3 other risks in TMT test, and then says, I would like you to now sign this form so that we can go through the test. A prior informed consent. First, he tells me what are the pros and cons of the test, how it helps, but it also tells me that there are risks in this test. And then he asked me to sign, or my relative or somebody who's with me will sign the form on my behalf and the test. So in other words, medical science and in clinical research, many times, there was a case this time also when the vaccine was being tested in Bhopal. The prior informed consent is obligatory and there are systems well established. But in social science, when dealing with the knowledge of the communities, we have not shown the same respect and same degree of fastidiousness, same degree of precision in following the same ethical rules that we follow, say, in medical science. So the concept of prior informed consent is not new. It is existing for a long time, but its operationalization in our labs has not taken place enough when it comes to knowledge of informal sector. There are very few papers in NIF. It was obligatory that any scientific paper published based on people's knowledge, the knowledge provider will be one of the co-authors. And they have more or less maintained this practice even after my stepping down. They have discontinued one more practice, which I very much regret, which is giving the name of the knowledge holder on the package of the product that comes out. That is something they are not continuing, which is not very good, but nevertheless, that problem is there. But otherwise, they're continuing with the tradition of acknowledging the knowledge holders in the research papers, or for that matter, all the patents, more than 1,200 patents that have been filed by NIF, each patent is in the name of knowledge holder, and no other scientist has a claim on the intellectual property, even if the scientists have provided the know-how for writing those claims by their validation research. So authorship, how do we claim authorship when we do research on people's knowledge? And I'm saying, yes, whatever value you have added, you have a right to be author. I will come to TKDL because TKDL is a misnomer because it is a database of codified classical knowledge, not the contemporary traditional knowledge. Please remember that. So there are about 280 or about
I want to ask something here about TKDL.
Yeah.
Sir, how do we decode decode that TKDL? I have tried to use it many a times, but I didn't find a single time usable ones. Even though I need it in my research as my
You are not
PhD
allowed to
project.
use it, isn't it?
Yeah, but I want to use it because it has a
Correct,
lot of
correct. You're right.
resource.
This is a campaign we have been having for last at least 10 years. First of all, let me tell you about TKDL briefly. That traditional knowledge digital library was developed when the turmeric debate took place, and Dr. Mashilkar, with the help of CSIR scientists and other scholars, opposed the patent that was granted to two Indians in US for a use of turmeric for wound healing, which was a well-known practice. So US laws required that that knowledge should be available publicly available in US. That means in US libraries, for considered as a prior art. And there were publications in US libraries which showed that. So that was done. Then the suggestion came in one of the WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization meeting, that shouldn't India help in making a database of traditional knowledge so that patent will not be granted then on the knowledge available in TKDL. That is the big genesis of TKDL. So then Ashok, there were many, Dr. Gupta and many others in CSIR, NISCARE, with the help of Department of Ayush. At that time, it was called ISM, Indian System of Medicine. Together developed this knowledge base where traditional knowledge holders interpreted the textual knowledge, the knowledge available in our granthas, knowledge available in Siddha, Unani, Ayurveda, etc., various documents, various text, and that was put together in a English language so that different patent offices could access this knowledge. So today, TKDL includes an enormous amount of data of traditional knowledge interpreted with the help of traditional knowledge experts, or at least the Veds from Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, etc. And this database is available to every patent office in the world, but not available to Indian scientists and scholars. And this asymmetry continues, but I'm hopeful that sooner or later, Indian government would reverse this very illogical, irrational, and improper restriction that they have put on the access to TKDL. And I'm saying this publicly because I have written about it. And it is wrong to deny this access to Indian scholars and Indian scientists, or for the matter, Indian entrepreneurs. So what you're saying is true, but interestingly enough, and I will show you that case. In one of the cases of typhoid drug, we have filed a patent in US with the help of a company, pro bono help of a lawyer in US, Boston, THT, and later it became Kalen Gates, Bill Gates' father's company, and they didn't charge us anything, like all other patent attorneys. So we filed a patent in USPTO, and TKDL incidentally filed an opposition on the claim that we had filed, based on the knowledge of a traditional knowledge holder from Jharkhand. And then in the TKDL, it was just mentioned about fever, but typhoid is not an ordinary fever. It has an alternating behavior. That was not mentioned in the TKDL. So our claim was upheld, and we were issued, the healer was issued the patent. So there are several cases where TKDL filed opposition, and in every single case, our claims were upheld because of the precision in our claims and the way we had worded our knowledge, our claims. I'm very happy to say this because TKDL could not invalidate any application of ours. But it did succeed in invalidating a large number of applications by in other countries where they were trying to claim something that was already disclosed in our codified knowledge. So this is what TKDL is. TKDL does not have contemporary knowledge of traditional knowledge that, in fact, today is documented by, it has started with the Honeybee Network, then Srishti, Gyan, and now NIF since 2000 has maintained a very large database. They've also put about 130,000 knowledge in open database available at their website, which you can access without any charge and without any registration You probably have to give your email, but that's all, and you can access it. So there is an available database which is open access and does not require any payment or any restriction. So let me come to the last 2 points. That why are we discussing this? Because we are assuming that by adding value to traditional knowledge, we might be able to generate some commercial products, and if benefits emerge, then benefits should go to the communities. And I will show you some examples of that. We should also recognize that incentivizing the knowledge holder is important if we want this knowledge system to continue. And of course, there are other tensions about scientists, tensions about prior informed consent, tensions about differentiating TKDL from contemporary knowledge, tensions about IPR. Some of you who are interested in intellectual property right might like to read the Indian patent law, and you will be amazed to read that it says that traditional knowledge cannot be patented, which means all the knowledge of the communities in our country is supposed to be prior art. Anybody can use it without any compensation. That's what the patent law says. Because some of the activists at that time persuaded government not to allow patents. But we have succeeded in having getting patent granted in India and US on traditional knowledge by not calling it traditional knowledge. What we do, we say that, look, this knowledge is not available in easily accessible documents, publications, Google, encyclopedia, or in all whatever records exist, books exist, then it is not a public knowledge. It is a unique claim. And why do we call it? We don't write it as a tradition. We say it is a knowledge claim of this community and or this healer, and we file application. And we have been granted application, hundreds of them, because we don't claim it as a TK. We don't claim it as a TK. It doesn't get obviated. So we are playing a trick, so to say, but it is well known, it's open. It is an open. Why? We are saying that TK is something, by the definition that the government uses, TK is what is widely known traditional knowledge. It is not widely known. So there is a case for reform there, but nevertheless, we should remember that in legal terms, we had taken away the entire knowledge right of our countries, traditional communities, all the communities, by bringing this amendment in the IPR law, which was not correct and which we opposed, but nevertheless, other people managed to dominate. And this law has not been changed in all these years. So please understand that no matter which government is in power, apparently nobody dislikes the idea that traditional knowledge should be kept openly accessible to everybody. We don't claim that for scientific knowledge. You file a patent in your lab for doing some research, you can license that patent, everybody accepts it. But people should not have this right. That is what the patent law says. But we have found a way around that problem by, as I said again, I'm repeating, by not calling it a patent or traditional knowledge. We'll look at this possibility today when we go through some further examples. That is it possible that every lab allocates some resources, maybe 10%, maybe 5%, for validation and value addition in people's knowledge before it is lost? Then there will be nothing more to validate, because the young generation would have either migrated to the cities as laborers. Most of the construction laborers, actually speaking, have come from the villages, all of them practically, and brought their knowledge. So during the lockdown first phase, Gyan did an experiment. We had a food for knowledge program where the food to the construction laborers stuck because of the transport being not available, and the contractor had run away and they had no food to eat. They were in various clusters. So around 1,000 such people were fed through our contribution, and many other people helped us. And we said, look, we are giving to you what you can get from anywhere. But what we want in return is your knowledge and with your credit. And we tried this program in Madurai, we tried it in Ahmedabad, we tried it in Jammu Kashmir and Bilaspur. And you will be surprised to know that many construction workers felt it was a very fair exchange. So there was no obligation. We said, you are not obliged to us because we are giving you food. After all, we are giving a low value resource. You are giving us a more value resource. And if anything comes out of it, you will be the custodian of that knowledge. Yes, Ashwini.
Yeah, I think, sir, this traditional knowledge, we say it's a prior art because only when we are able to claim that it's a prior art, we are able to stop many other countries in filing some patents based on traditional knowledge. But and the examples which you cited, I think it's an innovation over the traditional knowledge. So basically, you got the patent for the innovation over the traditional knowledge.
Correct.
So, I mean, it is definitely true that we can innovate over traditional knowledge, and it's on that innovation that we get patent, not on the traditional knowledge per se. Say, I mean, when we talk about the healing properties of turmeric.
No, we don't call it traditional knowledge. We are not calling it traditional knowledge.
No, sir. What I'm trying to say is when we talk about the healing properties of turmeric, so turmeric healing properties is definitely a traditional knowledge.
Yes.
But when we develop a new application or a new or a new way of treating a particular kind of disease through those healing properties, so that can be patented. So that is an innovation over the traditional knowledge.
Artemisian is a very good example. CDRI had published scores of papers on its activity against malaria. So had Chinese. It's a different matter that Noble went to the Chinese scientists because she had done the pioneering work and therefore got recognition for her, though CDRI had published many papers, which I'm sure she must have cited in her own publications. So there are products in the past which have been developed in this process. There are products which will be developed in future. A question that Vidwan has raised, maybe yes. So it is okay if the exploitation give opportunity to those who bear with it and they have equal right. No, I agree with you that if you have a collaboration with knowledge holders, develop a product, and if communities agree, you also share benefit, they also share benefit, that is reasonable. I don't think anything wrong with that. In fact, we want this to happen. One of the outcomes of today's class should be that more of you should feel persuaded from what effort we are making. You should feel persuaded that, yes, that's the way to go. So I'm 100% in agreement with one that, yes, we want to uncover, unleash the potential of this knowledge, provided the benefits from this knowledge, whether it is used as a DIY solution, do-it-yourself solution, open solution, or as a protected solution, should go to the communities, and they should be acknowledged, not only in publication, but also on the product, if we can have our way. So this is what we're trying to do. Anybody has any question before I proceed further? I will now begin with some examples. So anybody has any question about the framework that we have discussed? We are trying to distinguish individual knowledge, community knowledge, public knowledge. We are distinguishing between being aware about the use of a particular resource and having expertise to not only diagnose the problem, but also decide the dose, frequency, duration of the solution. So we are distinguishing these two things. Third thing we are saying is that not everybody is equally knowledgeable in a community. Some people are more knowledgeable. Fourth thing we are saying is that scientists who record this knowledge cannot become author. They are chronicler. But they must acknowledge by name and address the people whose knowledge they have documented. People cannot become anonymous. So Abhinit mentions that she got Nobel Prize because she got artemisinin production by S services. That's fine. That was that is a scaling up process. Then you don't need the plant material in huge quantities because you can develop it by alternative means through maybe fermentation technologies. So that's good. Now coming to the, is there any question before I proceed further? Anybody? Any argument, any dispute with what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Can I just make a point?
Go ahead.
Sir, suppose we take the common known knowledge that the methi seeds or the maybe jamun is
Used for
useful
diabetes.
for diabetes.
Right.
And somebody comes with a new application or a new drug for treating diabetes with the help of these methi seeds or maybe jamun. So my question is, how do we recognize the community community knowledge in this case? I mean, although the innovator, when he develops a new drug, he will definitely get recognized. But how do we recognize the committee behind it? I mean, how can we say that this person or this community has a share in this new drug? So that is what I want to ask.
First of all, let us recognize that new uses of already known molecules or products are recognized for protection in many countries, including US, but not in our country. For example, aspirin was used for headache before its use was also found as a blood thinner. So blood thinning is a new use of the known molecule developed by known method, but for an unknown application. So in case of methi, and for that matter, in case of jamun seed, if you have found its application for a disease other than diabetes, and let's say that was not claimed in the classical text as well as in traditional knowledge, contemporary knowledge of the communities, then you have a right to make some claims on that knowledge. But the fact that out of 43,000 species in our country, you chose these two because people had used them for the disease management. They shortlisted among the 43,000 species that we have in our country, these two for diabetes, that is, say, for the sake of argument, and your attention was focused because people made this contribution. Now, in such cases where knowledge is widely known, I would suggest that a contribution should be put in a national fund, which will be used for taking care of those traditional knowledge holders who have nobody to take care of them, and in their advanced age, their children may have gone away, or they may not have children, as the case may be, and they are on bad times. In the evening of their life, somebody has to take care of them, and this fund can be used for taking care of them. There's a precedence of this in the music, copyright of the music, what is called as a collecting society. So when an airline or a radio station or a telecom company licenses their music, whole library of music, then they don't pay royalty for each musician. They give it to the collecting societies. Collecting societies allocate it through a formula among different contributors. And those songs which are anonymous, that means whose writer is not known, that fund is kept for 60 years after the copyright is given to take care of those performers, musicians, songwriters who may need that assistance from public fund. So for anonymous work for which no one author can be found, there's a precedence in the collecting societies or in the musical art and performances, the intellectual property right with them, that fund that can be kept in a common fund for the well-being of people dealing with that knowledge system. In the earlier case with musicians or singers or songwriters, and in the current case that you asked, that fund can be used for old and infirm traditional knowledge holders whose families can't take care of them or who have nobody to take care of them. So that is a policy issue, which has not yet become a policy, but that's what I would argue and I've argued in the past. I'll take about 10 minutes more, 10 or 15 minutes more of a few examples I'll show quickly. And then 30, maybe we should make 10 groups of 30 each. And then that will not take too much time to present also. And take any one traditional knowledge, less common tradition, just how somebody has mentioned here. So we will take bacchus plant or anything that you can take, plant or animal, or even fermentation technologies. In Northeast, there are technologies for fermenting even sweet potato. They call it pocket wine. And then you carry that potato in your pocket. Whenever you feel like, you take it. And it also has a little bit of alcohol inside because of the fermentation. So there are many such fermentation technologies for many brews and other foods. A lot of them. There is also Chengi. Today, one of the students in our class, another class, had presented Chengi example from Manipur. Rice is steeped with many herbs mixed together for hair, like a traditional shampoo, you can call it, for hairs, both for its growth, healthy roots, and better cluster. So there are many such traditional knowledge examples that you could take and give us a pathway of how the interdisciplinary team will be required, because you need a key person from documentation, you need somebody's help, then you need help of chemist, you need help of microbiologist, maybe you need help of bioinformatics person to find out which target to screen it against, and then of course pharmaceutical science, formulation, shelf life, stability, clinical trials, and whole range of things will have to be gone through. Except that when it is mentioned in Ayurvedic text, you can skip the clinical trials. Indian law permits you to go to the market for any drug based on plants mentioned in Ayurvedic text directly, but then it will not get the same respect that you get after you do the clinical trial of what is called an evidence-based medicine. So let's just look at, yes, rice beer is also a very good example. And Neeraj mentioned this example, maybe is it from hill areas, Neeraj? Is it from Himachal or Uttarakhand? The plant that you mentioned, bacchus? Neeraj, are you there? So let's just take a few, I'll just mention 2 or 3 examples and then we will go. This is a document available on net. So those of you who want to study more detailed case studies, there are 3 cases that I have given in this document. It was circulated to all the member countries of WIPO. One is about Oryza longus caminata, which was a wild rice found in Mali, and which provided resistance against blast. So from Timbuktu region, the workers who migrated to the rice cultivating region will collect the seeds of this wild rice from swampy areas. And they had songs and other stories where the property of this rice not to get affected by any disease was documented. So then it was found to have tolerance for blast. Then it went to Central Rice Institute in Cuttack. Then from there it went to Erie. So Oryza longus caminata was then taken from the Erie. They found the genes XA21, and Pamela Ronald from UC Davis cloned it. And then she succeeded in transferring this knowledge to other crops, other varieties of rice to make them blast tolerant. Now, the point was that should the benefits from the licensing of this rice go to people in Mali or only to Philippines where it was taken from? Philippines did not make any contribution except cloning, identification cloning of the gene. Dr. Kush, famous Indian scientist, there did some work, but knowledge came from Mali. So I traveled to Mali, I met people from Timbuktu, I went to UC Davis, and the whole description of how this case turned out is written there. Second was from Nigeria, where a scholar from Nigeria working with Walter Reed Army Medical Research, Malarial Research Institute in US, developed a product based on the knowledge of the healers. And then I talked to the healers and found out what kind of benefit sharing system they would like to have. And some of them mentioned that at least our name should be there on the drug, if nothing else. In Kerala, the famous case of Kani tribe, which Dr. Pushpan Ganam, former director, NBRI, CSIR NBRI, And before that, Kerala Tropical Botanical Research Institute, TBRI, and Jaishankar, both of them were walking with the Kani tribals in Kerala and found that they were eating some leaves of Aragyapacha, which was not making them tired, and these scientists were getting tired. So then they found out the name, worked on that, developed a drug called Jeevani, which was published on the front page of many athletics magazine in US because it was a non-steroidal energy boosting drug. So it was permissible in that sense to take anywhere in any competition. Now all the three cases are described here in reasonable detail, and you can download it from the net. Just write benefit sharing Vaiko Anil Gupta, you will find this on the top. And this case studies, I will not take more time, but just for those of you who want to study the subject more detail, can do that. I don't know, I don't think I shared this photograph with you. Did I? Did I share this photograph before?
No, sir.
No, okay. So this is from Anantnag. We were having a Shodhyatra there, and we were passing by this. Suddenly we saw this house, and we couldn't walk further. As you can see, this wall looks almost freshly painted, isn't it? So we were curious. We had never seen a wall so clean. So we thought maybe it is freshly painted. But there was something in my mind which intrigued me in saying, maybe I should ask this question. So we went inside with the permission of the weaver house. It was a weaver's house. And when we went in, it seemed like an old house. So we asked, did you paint it recently? No, no, no. This is the wall as it was made 30 years ago. 30 years ago. No black patch. No. So much rain, so much snow. Yes. So I had never seen a wall exposed to air without any fungal patch. You know, when they rust, when the bacteria will burst, it causes black, or fungus for that matter, will cause black smut, black rust. And those patches in our buildings in the cities, we find them black patches in your lab, you would notice that on the walls. And here, this wall did not have any patch of any bacteria or fungus which will cause black patches. So we said, what did you do? Sir, we took the clay, we mixed the rice straw and jute fiber, old jute bags fiber. Now, if you do search, you will find that jute seed and jute fiber in certain conditions has antimicrobial property. Now, if you want to make a clean room in your lab, you use titanium dioxide nanoparticles mixed with the paint, and that makes the surface antimicrobial, antibacterial. Here is the surface, exposed to open light, open air, open rain, without a mark of any bacterial or fungal growth, which, because the organic matter flows with the wind and deposits on the wall, and then the organisms, microbial organisms will grow on that and will cause black patches. Not a single patch. Now, I'm sure you will agree that this is a fascinating traditional knowledge requiring further research by the Central Building Research Institute, by the architects, by the material scientist, by the scientists interested in antimicrobial surfaces, and a whole range of scientists. We wrote about it. Nobody got excited actually so far to do a real research on it, but it is worth doing it. So what I'm saying is that traditional knowledge many times can intrigue us to ask questions which we otherwise miss. This is in Sikkim. We found prayer flags. So we asked people, where do you keep these flags? But there are two conditions the flag site should meet. One, the flag should see the water, so there should be a river nearby, which can be seen when you stand near the flag. Second, there should be a strong wind so that it can flutter, because prayer is not fulfilled if the flags are not fluttering. Which means you can almost map the wind corridors by mapping the flags, prayer flags in Sikkim. Interesting idea. So if you were to locate your windmills, you know where to locate them. Very interesting how traditional knowledge provides clues about using contemporary knowledge of weather and other conditions and wind velocity and wind direction for mounting windmills. This example I may have used how this cream was made by pooling the knowledge of 6 different communities, and it was licensed to the company, and these healers were invited when the product was launched. And as some of you mentioned, you were not able to get this drug, but nevertheless, Troika Pharmaceutical should be able to provide you if you write to them. There are many products that have come out of traditional knowledge. Now, what are the challenges we have? For example, many people make liquor. I mentioned this last time. I also wrote to one of you who had written to me about one of the unmet need. And I said, if you are from CIMAP or you are from IHPT or you are from one of the labs which works on distillation or fractional distillation, why don't you take up a problem of designing a fractional distillation equipment which can use this knowledge of distillation to a next level of fractional distillation and develop more value-added products, and they can then develop dyes and drugs. Here is a case of a product that we had licensed to a company in Hyderabad a long time ago, and we put the name of the innovator, the photograph on the product wrapper. Now, when you go to malls, you go to shops in the cities, you will not find many products on which the inventor's photographer name is given. But why shouldn't it be given? If you are an inventor and we acknowledge you on the wrapper, what is wrong with that? That gives confidence to the consumer that it is developed by R&D, by somebody. This was, of course, a herbal pesticide. This is a very interesting case. So this was a plant, a farmer was mixing a particular plant with neem, and he was saying that neem becomes more effective. So we gave this problem to scientists, and scientists did some research. And they found that when you expose this two mixtures, two constituents separately, there's a high degree of degradation of neem with exposure of up to 20 minutes of UV light. But when you mix this plant, it becomes storage stable. That's interesting, isn't it? If that plant prevents degradation of neem, maybe it could prevent degradation of many other products, maybe food products also. So this could be a modern preservative without using sodium metabisulfite and other compound that you have from traditional knowledge. This is the case that I was mentioning you, Shatrughan Prasad. He is no more. And this was the one that we filed in US, where TKDL opposed. And the Indian Council of Medical Research, virus unit, Calcutta, had done the research. They found that it was very effective. And they took all the kinds of antibiotics, which are listed here, and found that this plant extract was more effective in inhibiting the typhoid organism than all of these antibiotics, ciprofloxacin, trimethoprim, norfloxacin, and tetracycline, so chlorphenicol, and so on. So there are cases where traditional knowledge-based drug can surpass the benchmark of the modern medicine or modern solutions. And I will not take too many examples. These are just some examples where a National Innovation Foundation has developed product licensed to the companies. As I said, they are not mentioning the name of the innovator, which is unfortunate, but otherwise they are at least acknowledging. Because you see, it is not a product developed by NIF, it is a product developed by a healer facilitated by NIF. That's what it should be written. But I'm sure in due course, they will modify their stand. And Government of India will also take note of it, that when we develop products, the labs, of course, help in developing products. But where does the lead come from? And how come that the lead provider is not mentioned on the wrapper? That's not fair, isn't it? We should also mention the lead provider on the wrapper. And that would make it much more fair. So I will stop here. I should mention one more example of a lady. We met her in Champaran Shodhyatra, and she was one of the first women patent holder for a herbicide, Srimati Janaki Devi. There are many examples from other countries, weed control, from Guinea, Basu, and so on, but I will not go into that. Now we will divide ourselves into 10 groups maybe. Anamika, can you help us in dividing? And let me explain what we have to do. You will, first of all, share, 10 of you will share some traditional knowledge among yourself and quickly decide within the 3 or 4 minutes or 5. So there are 297. Assume that there are 300. Some will have less. 10 groups will have 30 each. So you will then first discuss a few examples and pick up the one which intrigues most of you. In other words, don't take the simple one at this moment, I think, because some of you might feel that there is no challenge in it. So take the one where you find some challenge. No matter which discipline you come across, some people, I hope by chance, will be life science people. But if not, use your common sense and develop a pathway for validation and value addition. And this pathway then later on can be refined. And you can also mention the challenges that you face in terms of access to the material, getting funding. One of the questions raised was, how will we get funding? Well, DST, DBT, BIREC, they do provide funds for specific scientific problems, and this can be a legitimate problem. There is, to my best of my knowledge, there is no separate window for validating and value-adding in traditional knowledge, which is paradoxical in the current government. I mean, if this government wouldn't do that, who would have done it? But somehow there is no special funding at this moment. But the existing institutions do have funds, DST, DBT, and I'm sure CSIR would also have some funds, I hope, to invest in such research. Even if it is a subsidiary research, that means it is not your thesis problem. Though some of you who are in early stage of thesis might take up some research on validating such claims and developing new products for the global market. Is that clear? Everybody knows what we have to do in these 15 minutes? 15 or 20 minutes maybe? Any doubt about what we are going to do before we divide into groups? Any clarification you need? We will divide into 10 groups. My colleague, Dr. Ananika, is going to help us in doing that. And we will identify the traditional knowledge which we are aware of from our respective region. If one of you can make a small list of all of that with names of the person who's providing it, that then you can send a mail to us and send it so that everybody knows what was shared in each group, because we will not have time to go through all of that. So my request is one of you can be chair the group and one of you can rapporteur. The rapporteur will make a small note on the discussions, and then you can decide who will present it in 1 or 2 slides as to which traditional knowledge did you prioritize, why did you prioritize it, and how would you take it forward, either yourself or through some other friends, and what institutional challenges are you facing to take it forward. Funding could be one, lab access could be another, or there could be anything else that you want to mention. Is that clear now? We should start with group 1.
Yes, sir. So this is Ashwini Gupta.
Yeah.
So, sir, in our group, although we...
Yeah, go ahead.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, sir, in our group, we have discussed 5 or 6 ideas which can possibly be upscaled. So one example was given of kerosene. So one of the participants, I don't remember his name, so he was telling that he has used kerosene for the treatment of paralysis. So he told that his father experienced paralysis, and when he experienced that, I mean, he was given a glass of kerosene to drink.
Drink?
Yes, to drink kerosene.
Oh my God!
And with that, I mean, he could recover from that. So that is one example.
Well, it is hazardous substance, so I will suggest everybody to use sufficient precaution. And just because it is traditional knowledge, it need not always be safe. There are practices which can cause other adverse effects. So we will put it under the caution knowledge, where we should not go ahead without testing it further.
Okay, sir. And
It's
another
useful to know, but since it involves hazardous substance, it doesn't involve an edible product, edible ingredient, we should be careful.
Another example given was about the beetroot juice.
Yes,
So,
that is okay.
One of the participants, she recovered from COVID, and she was feeling extremely weak. So to overcome her weakness, her mother, prescribed that she must take beetroot juice, morning and evening, 1 glass each. And that gave her, quite a good amount of strength. And she has been able to overcome her weakness by intake of this beetroot juice for about a week or 10 days. So this is another application of
These are very useful things, and I think this could be, if it can be quickly verified and quickly confirmed, it can become a public information. And which lab is it from? This is very useful information. This could be shared widely with the country if it is effective and it has helped. We need to just get some more experiments done. And there's nothing harmful in it. I take beetroot juice every day. So surely this can be, one can do a case and control study very quickly and find out this effect in rejuvenation or rehabilitation of the COVID group.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I'm Pooja.
Yeah.
Sir, I have just recovered from Corona, but I'm feeling weak. I could not able to do my work, so I will try this week.
Yes, you should try this.
Yeah.
You should definitely try this.
Thank you so much for sharing, sir.
That's very useful. Kritika is saying that it can also be useful for liver. It's useful for and liver gets, and COVID does weaken the liver. So maybe there is a merit in it.
And in fact, for carrot also.
Yes. All right. So anybody wants to talk about a particular practice that you have prioritized for validation? Is this the one, or there is another one?
So, sir, there was another example of which was shared by one of the participants. She said that if you soak this fenugreek seeds and okra seeds overnight, and in the morning take that, that helps in prevention of diabetes.
Okra, I'm hearing first time. I have heard about methi log many times for diabetes.
Regarding the okra, what I was saying is that if one end of the okra can be cut, and that the rest part of the okra, if it is soaked in water, and the very next day if that water is taken, so that way.
Yes, that is what my wife did it, and that was found to be quite effective. The sticky substance that oozes out
Yes,
from
sir.
the okra apparently is very useful. So
Yes,
good. Now, my suggestion is, before we move to group 2, you can offline discuss and prioritize one or two things on which some work should be done. I mean, during the course, if you can do, some of you can volunteer to do some small experiments and find out more information after doing the literature review. So then that will be one of the concrete output of the course, where we would have added to the public knowledge on certain solutions. We can make it public domain also if you wish to. So kindly consider, continue to remain in touch with each other. Group 2, please.
Good evening to everyone. So in group 2, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. In group 2, we all spoke mostly about plant and plant extracts. So one of the girls, she was telling her experience how locally the plant is called Tippatiga in Telugu. I have looked up the common name, it is Guruchi. So they have used this extract post-COVID and...
Spora cordifolia.
Yes. So she has used extract of those plants, and it helped them post-COVID, even recovering from COVID.
In Hindi, it is called Giloy, or it is also called Guduchi. Very effective both in preventing COVID and also in rehabilitating. It's a very good I will strongly recommend it. Read literature on it. It is recommendation of Ayush department also. Ayush 64 also includes this. So this is very sure. She's doing absolutely right. Absolutely right. Go ahead, group 2.
Yes. And another guy, although he was not able to identify the name, he has pictures. He said that this plant, which was found very abundantly in their village, had more mucilage compared to aloe vera and hibiscus. So we spoke the possibility of whether it could also be used as a substitute to aloe vera and what properties this plant has. So maybe if there is a method by which they could share pictures, he could send us the pictures of the plant and
We can get
someone
it
could
identified.
identify the botanical
Yeah, we
name.
will get it identified. If you send the picture to us, we will get it identified. Yes, we will definitely try. Send us the habitat. Where does it grow and what kind of, it is a tree, bush or creeper. Describe something and then we will try to find out.
And another plant which was mentioned was Hygrophila spinos, and it helps with hemoglobin count.
Okay.
So it is the again extract of this plant is commonly used in Bengal. She said she's from Bengal, and there they give extract of these plants to anemia patients so that they can increase the hemoglobin.
Now, has your group decided to pursue one or two practices for further research?
We have not decided, but mostly we spoke on these plants which were useful. We
So
also
Vaishnavi,
spoke about.
can you continue offline? Just sorry for interrupting. Can
Yes,
you
sir.
continue offline and finalize? At least some of you can volunteer to work on the further research on it. Maybe a quick experiment or a quick analysis in your lab. If the information is not available already in the prior publications, and then try to see whether something useful can come out of it.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. You were saying something.
No, just this, and we also spoke about how in Ayurveda we use oils in belly for treating some diseases. So we spoke about navel and belly as unexplored routes for drug delivery system,
Correct.
which I think in one of the grassroots lecture also we had discussed.
Correct. Good point. Thank you. We'll go to group 3.
Our groups had some discussion on some plants and some fruits. So I want to share. I want to put my personal experience with the leaves of the custard apple, which famously known as a sitapal.
Correct.
So, sir, with these things, even I am in my house. Even I myself recover from the long-term acidity problem. My mother also has the long-term acidity problem, and I have also tried with I also shared these things with my other relatives, and they have also got recovered from these things. So, custard apple leaves is can be a potential medicine for long-term acidity problem. And the second thing, sir, one of a member in our group from Bengal, he talked about the taro leaves. So he said like the taro leaves can be used for the treatment of the cancer.
We should have the name of the person who has mentioned this, and then you can find out.
Yeah, his name is Pranay. Like one girl from Bengal, she also suggested about the jackfruit and the mango leaves for the treatment of the diabetes, and jamun also for the treatment of the diabetes.
Mango leaf also helps in reducing cholesterol. I take it every day. Soaking in the night and take the water in the morning.
Yes, sir. And one more interesting thing, one girl also talked about the brinjal, the use of brinjal. We can use brinjal for while cutting the nails. Sometimes accidentally, some swelling comes out in our finger. So for treating these things, we can use the brinjal. I don't know the name of that also.
The mango leaves for what? Soaking at night?
Mango leaves and jackfruit for the treatment of diabetes.
Soak at night and take in the morning.
That is for cholesterol.
Okay.
Sir told that is for cholesterol.
Okay.
Hello. I'm Priyanka Datta of PSR and CL, and I'm not from this group actually. But in case of dengue fever, that's mosquito bite. So in case of dengue fever, we feel that blood platelets very low हो जाती है. In that case, we can use goat milk, बकरी का दूध, to enhance the platelets, blood platelets for that specific patient. So it can easily and even faster increase the blood platelets to recover that patient.
Group number 4. Yes, you are right, Bharat. Papaya leaves also are useful. Group number 4.
Hello, sir. I'm Ishani Banerjee. I was in group number 4. So we had discussed a lot of traditional knowledge, and we have narrowed down to 4 of them. One is drumsticks, one is honey, one is arjun bark, and one is papaya. So what we thought is, since the time was constrained, so those who have come up with the ideas, they will elaborate on it. So please elaborate those who said.
Okay, so we chose first honey because it is used from the centuries to treat insomnia, and the other advantages of this that it can be also used to cure skin disorders such as wounds and burns, further cardiac pains and palpitations, and it is also useful in diseases such as all imbalances of lungs and anemia.
Very true, very true, very true.
Hello.
Now, you must remember,
Yes,
just 1 second, Vishwapreet, you should know that honey from different base flowers has different properties. So if you really want to take this issue further, then honey from different trees, from bees which collect pollen nectar from different trees, have different healing properties. So you might like to go into that also.
Sir, I have also heard that whatever the feed is given to the bees, so its flavor naturally comes to the honey.
Flavor and also its therapeutic effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can go for this.
That's right. That's an interesting problem. Unfortunately, in our country, Khadi Gramodyog mixes all the kinds of honey and never lets consumer develop taste for a specific honey. But all over the world, in Europe, you have the honey sold with a specific base flower photograph, so that, or sketch, so that you know from which honey you are using. Is it sunflower? Is it mango? Is it babool or whatever? So you might like to take this issue further. Yeah.
So we have a short of time, so there is another another ideas that need to be discussed.
Arjun bark for cardiac purposes is well known.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it is
And
well
it
known.
also have hypersensitive, the hypertension.
Correct. But
को lose करने के
take
लिए भी use कर.
take something less known, take something not obvious.
So it is also used in treating UTI.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. But if anything which is already known in Ayurveda, we don't have to take up. We should take up something. My suggestion would be, you do a prior search, and if you find that certain claims are well established scientifically, then you can leave them. But whichever claim you find is not scientifically established, that would be interesting.
Good evening, sir. I'm also from group 4. Sir, I just wanted to add one point. As you mentioned that so many honey are mixed up and we don't know about the properties from which like flower they have been extracted or which flower extract has been used. So one problem which I witnessed is in some places like rural places when the flowering season is less, what people do is those people who are doing this bee farming kind of thing, they actually prepare these sugar syrups and they put it for bees there, and they just feed on it and they produce the honey.
So that's a malpractice. We can avoid that.
So
we should ignore that. Yeah.
We can also study some practice where we can distinguish between such honey that which is produced by this practice other than from the actual flower nectar is produced.
You're right. And there are mechanisms of that.
Yeah.
So before
sir,
we
I am
Syed.
Yeah.
Last point. Yes.
Yes, sir. I am Syed Nasser from CSIR CLRI. Sir, in my childhood, we had a drumstick tree in our house and in our areas also. We used to nail the drumsticks with the iron nails. We used to nail at the bark of the tree, and it increases the flowering and
Flowering,
also
yes.
yeah, and also it increases the increases the fruit bearing capacity. The nailing of the iron increases the flowering. Maybe we can develop.
But Syed, we want a scientific experiment. We want a scientific experiment establishing
yes,
it.
sir.
This is anecdotal.
Yeah,
Unless we do a scientific experiment with, let us say, 5 or 10 drumstick plant with nail and 10, let us say, without nail, at least to begin with. Later on, we can do a replicated trial. But we should do
Yes,
a
sir, yes,
proper
sir.
observation trial first, maybe wherever
Yes.
you are, and if there's a domestic garden, it can easily
Yes.
be done with a
Yes,
control
yes,
and
sir, yes,
base.
sir.
So that,
Yes,
what
sir.
happens is our
So,
traditional knowledge gets bad name many times because we have not subjected it to rigorous test. And we should
yes.
follow, we should have a skeptical attitude, and there is nothing wrong in skeptical attitude so long as it
Yes.
leads to more evidence-based knowledge. So,
Yes, sir. Sir, my concern is that drumstick leaves are rich in iron.
correct,
Iron.
right.
Yeah, and that leaves are used to treat anemia and several diseases like diabetes and all. Maybe we can develop some iron nanoparticles and we can apply it as a foliar spray or as a fertilizer, iron-rich fertilizer to increase.
This is a good point, very good point, Syed. Take it up.
Yes.
Find out some
Yes.
partners from your team in group 5, group 4, and take up some
Yes,
experiment. That's a very novel, very interesting idea that you just mentioned. Iron
sir.
nanoparticles, and let somebody do that. Group
Yes.
5, please. Group 5. Pallavi, maybe you should join this idea, to take up this idea if you're interested in this. There are papers on green synthesis of nanoparticles. There are many papers. I do not know about them.
I am less interested in green synthesis. I am working on right now TNT based things.
Which one? What based? What based?
TNT, carbon nanotube.
Okay.
So I am very less. Have very less knowledge, but I know drug deliveries with TNTs and graphenes. So I am focusing on that.
All right, very nice.
That is very interesting topic, green synthesis. I had produced in our 12th lab or.
So you can study various kinds of ashes. You can study various kinds of ashes and see which carbon nanoparticles are there in the ash and what properties they have. Maybe that would be interesting.
Our lab is working on that. Ashes पे work हमारी lab करती है सर MPL. Carbon department has worked on that.
Okay. Group 5, please.
5. The idea was about use of moringa leaves.
Yes, moringa leaves are used for blood pressure.
I believe, there was one person, Moni, who suggested this idea. So maybe he can elaborate on this.
Go ahead, Moni. Go ahead.
Yeah, I suggested more use of moringa leaves for 2 things. One is for anemia, and one is for a high blood pressure as well.
Correct.
Yeah, so the target group is mainly for anemia. It's mainly the females, especially the girls who are achieving puberty, mothers, because in India the anemic the problem of anemia is very high, and the same is true for blood pressure. So the plan was to maybe we need to understand what is the demand and what is the supply, because we may not have that much of moringa plants around everywhere, so that it can cater.
There is a lot of cultivation of moringa. So if you want leaves to be collected, enough supply is there. Enough supply.
Okay. So we wanted to have a collaboration with some of the Ayurvedic institutes to properly understand and have a thorough scientific study, see its side effects as well, how it can be administered.
Because there are anti-nutritive factors in the leaves. You're right.
Yes. So that was the basic idea, and then we need to make it cheaper or maybe free so that it can reach to the masses.
Right. Any other thing from group 5?
Like basically there are many medicines available on Moringo, like drumstick, leaves, stem, everything is available. Like some private companies like Amway, they sell that one for diabetes patients and also for thyroid. So in dried form, also in powdered form and in capsules, they are available in the market.
So let us go for something new, something different. Pargam, you wanted to say something? Anybody who wanted to add from group 5? We go to group 6.
Yes, sir. I want something. Sir, I'm from Africa, precisely from Nigeria. So in Nigeria, there's a plant that is called bitter cola. So we use it actually for male sexual dysfunction. It has aphrodisiac effect, which is very has been proven scientifically. So that is also very.
Hello, sir. I think I'm from group 6.
Go ahead, Ragini.
Actually, we discussed on formulating Chyawanprash into nano suspensions or lozenges. Generally, Chyawanprash is a well-established traditional medicine which boosts immunity. So it is made of amla base, but just to improve taste, they'll be adding sugar and honey. So because of this reason, diabetic people might not consume that. So, and also the taste is not acceptable for the kids. So when we make formulation into liposomal suspension or lozenges, kids can have them, and also like diabetic people can consume them. And the other thing is like generally we have Chyawanprash 1 tablespoon like that, but when we formulate into nanoparticles, they can be because of increased surface area, their absorption is increased and they can be taken in low doses.
Thank you. Anybody else from group 6?
Hello, sir.
Anybody?
This is Shikha.
Bolo,
Actually, group from, actually, sir, now actually COVID is because of COVID, many people are losing their smell. So at home, what we are normally what actually I've also got COVID. So what we have done is just making a small pot. Taking clove and this black pepper and kapoor, and smelling it constantly after 2 hours. It is helping in getting that smell back, very soon.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
you should really share this, because there's no harm in it.
Yes,
and if
sir.
the taste and smell can come back faster among the COVID patients, that's very nice.
Yes, sir, because people are not getting smell even after 2 months also. So, but using this thing, in my family, we have seen everyone got almost back or their smell within 7 to 8 days.
Wonderful. You should type it on the chat. Type it on the chat.
Sure, sir.
Almost every family has COVID cases now. Almost every family has. Anybody else from group 6 before we go to group 7?
Sir, Iranda leaves we can use in jaundice.
Okay. Castor leaves.
Yeah, castor leaves.
Castor leaves. Okay. Please type it out. Please type it out.
Okay, sir.
Okay, group 7, please.
In addition to what Ragini said, that formulation of nanoparticles, there was one more point which was discussed in the group, that instead of having a paste-like formulation, a tablet formulation which can be put below under, children can easily consume that in the form of a toffee or tablet gummies like thing. Yes, sir.
Parminder, you can present now if you have a thought. We will go to group 7 after listening to you.
I'm Pooja from group 7.
Yeah.
We have discussed remedies related to digestive system mainly, sir. Methi, cumin seeds, ajwain, desi cow ghee can be used for digestion system, and Sagar will explain.
Yes, Sagar.
Yes, sir. Some of the points were like the desi ghee plus tea is used for the loose motions, and
Desi
some
ghee
were the very
plus
tea, sir.
Tea, okay.
Like in a tea, you added desi ghee, and this is the least explored solution for loose motions. And we also had a discussion on that. I am from CSI of Chandigarh, and a fellow from MTech, a friend, has raised his help for this, that he can do some virological testing for this, the bacterial infection, how it spreads, and how desi ghee plus tea can reduce it or slow it down. The other solutions that were discussed were about chicken pox from Tamil Nadu. Radhika shared this, that how young neem leaves plus turmeric is consumed in the morning with water for the treatment of chickenpox. Some solution for malaria is also discussed by Roshni Bang from Uttarakhand, and red ants are used for the remedy. They consume red ants for treating malaria. And some other solutions were for mining and cement work for allergic environments. People take jaggery,
Yes,
good.
jaggery and chickpea.
Yeah. So the anti-allergic properties of jaggery needs to be explored.
Investigate.
Yes, sir. So these were the major things which were being
Please type
discussed,
it
sir.
out. Please type all of these. Please type all of
Sure,
these.
sir.
Yeah. Anybody else from group 7? Otherwise, we go to group 8.
Yes, sir. I want to contribute. Normally for the cough and cold, even now nowadays also we practice. We take a jaggery will take and add to a cumin seed and the cardamom will take and clove we take and tej patta we take and the bark we take that the usually spices and bishop seed we take and all this gradient take it about 1 liter of water and boil it to something like less than 200 milliml and drink it. And this is very effective, and everyone at home, my home, is practice during the cough and cold and get a remedy in within a day or 2 days. So
Very
this
good.
was I could not share with my group because
Yeah,
network
but
is
it
bad.
is good. Good that you mentioned group. Please type it out. Although these are well known in chai masala, but even then you can type it out and share.
Yeah, chai masala they use sugar, but here we are using a jaggery.
Okay, very good.
We don't recommend sugar.
Correct. Group 8, please. If there's nobody from group 7 left, then group 8.
Sir, one thing I
yes,
want
go
to
ahead.
add it.
Go ahead.
In Santhal Pargana area in Jharkhand, and also in some rural area in nearby Ranchi, there people used to eat nascent new people's leaf as a vegetable during summer season when these leaves are grown, and they are saving themselves from any disease that arises due to this summer. So these things are only in use, but what are the reasons? That is not. I think it is not available. I search in Google and other
This is
search
the whole
engine.
point. This is the whole point. For all these years, we have neglected our knowledge system by not subjecting it to very rigorous, strict scientific evaluation. We should not make any concession when it comes to evaluating it. Anybody else from group 7? We go to group 8.
Sir, I'm Anne Mary from CSR Sikri, but I'm basically from Kerala. So regarding cough and fever, which were discussed in group 7, in Kerala for babies and all for the curing cough and all, the mothers used to give the lemon juice with the sugar rocks sugar. So they just dilute it and given to the babies. So the cough will be go through the motion, so that it will be easier for the babies. And for the fever cases, for fever cases of babies also, there is one leaf called, we will call it as panikurka. I actually don't know the English name of that. So panikurka we will call. So we dip that leaf of it in castor oil and just shown to the flame. So then we put it on the forehead of the babies, so that within a overnight the babies will the fever will be get reduced. So some such practices were there in Kerala also. Sir.
Yeah, you better write down, and then later on we can find the scientific name of this. Anything else in group 8?
Yes,
yes,
sir.
go ahead.
I'm from group 8. We have discussed several things. So I listed out jaggery and honey instead of just a simple activity, simple thing in day-to-day life. Instead of synthetic sugar, which we are getting it, we can use jaggery or honey. Make it a practice.
Correct.
To add it so that we have a less cases of diabetes, or we can overcome that. Plus turmeric again for as an antibiotic or anti-allergic property, we can have it in a regular basis. Black pepper, somebody has said black pepper for instead of paracetamol, we can use black pepper. And neem leaves and its bark, plus people people tree and its bark for agricultural practice. Somebody has told that people tree leaves are used in agriculture. Maybe it increases the micronutrients in the soil. It boosts the soil quality, and it also shown the antimicrobial property.
Very
Plus,
interesting. This is I'm hearing for the first time, so this is very interesting. We should take up. Somebody should take up experiment of this. Yes, go ahead.
Again, one more thing is there. Even I have used it in my course of time. Water plus iron rubbing. When we put some water on iron plate or any iron object, and we rub it from both the sides, but both the things should be of iron. It has an anti-inflammatory, plus it decreases the itching sensation when we get stung with bee or wasp. So directly, whenever we put that iron rubbing water on the place where we have got stung, bee sting or wasp stung, it helps in reducing the inflammatory reaction, and it cures also fast. I myself have used it.
Ferric oxide, maybe a little bit of oxide will be there on the surface of iron.
Yes,
and that probably helps in this. Very interesting. Write down on the chat or somewhere.
And two more things, sir.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There is one paper, only one paper till now, which Vaishnavi has said me. Banana sap. Banana sap is used for treatment of leprosy.
Oh.
Only one paper she has found, and she has shared it. I would request her to share it in the group also. It's a very interesting paper. It's all about banana. And strawberry mashed mixed with salt. It is used for teeth whitening, to de-stain the teeth. And also, I myself have heard from my grandparents that cooking food in iron utensils, just a normal practice. It decreases the, or almost I can say, neglect the anemic effect, the anemia.
True.
These are all the things which we have discussed.
True. Good. Anything else? Anybody wants to add anything to group 8? We go to group 9. Yeah.
I'm from group 9, different Gaikwad from CSR series. So we had discussed some stuff related to pesticides. So basically, the conventional pesticides are harmful to us. So we can use some organic methods to tackle the issue. One of them is to use neem oil by adding neem oil to water and spraying it onto the crops. So this can be used as an organic solution.
Yeah, very widely known. And next,
yeah, the next one is to use yellow sticky papers, and we can actually basically the insects will stick to the paper. Correct. And that way some problem will be reduced. Yeah. Another thing is we can add neem leaves. Basically, the farmers can use the compost, and while preparing the compost, neem leaves can be added to the compost. So inherently, the soil will have anti-insect kind of properties.
True.
And apart from that, there are some parasitic nematodes which will attack the insects that are harming the crops. So that can be purchased and actually used to curb the spread of insects that are harmful to the crops. So these are the 4 things mostly that we had discussed.
Sir, this is Sushri from Group 9.
Okay, Sushri.
Sir, as you said that the chemical-based insect repellents about when we discussed about the naphthalene, camphor, and phenol, sir, yeah. I came across some flowers who has their natural property of keeping the bugs away. I am just suggesting that we can also use them as a natural insect repellent, like lavender, mint, then there is marigold, basil, and chrysanthemum. So this is what I wanted to add.
Very true.
Based on our discussion of insect repellents and all.
And of course, and it will be very useful if we can make incense stick or make some other ways. Essential oil can be extracted.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Next, please. Next, please.
Sir, I'm Pankaj from Group 9.
Sir, there is a weed in UP. It's found in all over India. I think it's all over world found. It's Ageratum conozoid. We call it Sarandu ghas. So this weed used in wound healing property. Whenever workers or farmers working in the field, they got cut or small wounds, they just simply macerate the leaves of this.
You should type the name. I couldn't hear the name of the plant. We type on the chat, please.
Okay, so I will type.
Yeah.
And I don't find it in the TKDL platform, but there are many research articles published from Africa which are reporting its wound healing property.
Yes, yes. Anybody else from group 10? Anything else from group 10, please?
Hello, sir.
Vikas?
This is Vikas from CSIR NCL. So we have not, we have discussed about these health related issues, but also I am from Satna, and this is Satna is cement city known for cement production. I was thinking that in old time in India, people were using lei for building binding materials. Different kind of lei were made. One such kind of lei I know, which is made from bale fruit extract.
Yes, yes.
And in different part of India, during different time periods, people have used different natural gums, rubbers, plants, fruits and vegetable extracts, crop extracts, etc. for making these lei. So we can systematically characterize the properties of these kind of binding material which is used. And since you know the cost of cement is going very high, and in India more than 10-20 crore people is still sleeping on streets, so providing a affordable housing solution, we can think if we can use such kind of natural.
Because which lab are you from?
I'm from CSIR NCL, sir.
NCL, well, you can cooperate with CBRI maybe and jointly develop something on this work, because this is a very important point that you made. We have seen in 2,000-year-old Buddhist stupas, they were using pulses as a binding material, certain black gram and few other things. You can see them in the bricks. These bricks have withstood 2,000 years of rain and climate and still are intact and solid and strength.
Yes,
so we should look at, you are absolutely right that building materials today, modern building materials don't last beyond 30 years, 40 years, maximum 50 years. Whereas these materials have withstood 2,000 years.
Yes,
so you have a very good point, because take it up further if you can. See what kind of maybe some of these were polymerized in some way. Think of that. NCL has a lot of interest in polymer chemistry. So if you can build that linkage between what you're saying and with some other labs or some other scholars in the group that we have today, that will be very meaningful. I would invite somebody. Is there somebody from CBRI here? Central Building Research Institute?
Yes, sir.
So, Astubuja, can you join hand with Vikas and take this issue further?
Yes, sir, sure, sir. I will contact and try to work on this.
This is a very important point, because this is something very, very vital for developing affordable construction materials, which are also green materials. And one of the advantage of these materials is that when you demolish the building, the bricks can still be reused. Whereas with the modern materials of concrete, bricks cannot be reused. So you are really saving a lot of energy. And you know that construction sector is one of the largest consumer of energy in the country. 30% energy is consumed in construction sector. So it's a very important point, a very good point, because Astubuja, please join hand together. So friends, if there's nobody
on this, I would like to add something. The construction material which you are saying, I'm working on seaweed. So seaweed has that, we get agar and agar from the seaweed. So I was just thinking that we already use it in nutraceutical values. We already use it in dentistry to make different things. But if we can use this same gelling agent in the construction also, like just now they said we can use that using the black gram, the thing which they have used it previously. In old age also there were no synthetic material. These
Correct.
are the only thing. So if in new age we can use the knowledge of old age plus the new age.
Correct, correct. Because, you know, these buildings have survived for 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and yet we ignore that knowledge. We ignore that knowledge for nothing, for nothing. So you have a point, Renuma, that maybe other gels can also be used as binding materials. It's a very good point. And maybe these don't require heat. They may be able to bind cold processes. So you can save energy in baking also. It's a very good point. Very good point. We should really take this forward. So friends, coming to the close, let me take just 2-3 minutes. Friends, my 3 or 4 points. One is that today we focused far too much, maybe entirely on, or 99% on medicinal plants, but and some insects like red ant. But otherwise, the traditional knowledge exists in all disciplines, including metallurgy. You know, people in Bastar, they used to make arrowheads, and these arrowheads, they had a process of smelting iron from the ore. Similarly, we have construction traditional knowledge. We have traditional knowledge in weaving. We have in handloom. We have in dyes and colors. We have in food. We have in preservatives. We have in a whole range of construction, I mean, in carpentry, how to elongate the life of wooden furniture and so on and so forth. So there is a huge amount of traditional knowledge. We have scrapped very tiny surface today, but it was only to arouse our interest and make it obvious to us that while some knowledge was common across the groups, a lot of knowledge is unique among us, even among us. We, the class of about 300 students, has maybe at least 30 practices, if not more, which I have not heard them before. So I would say that despite all my life I have spent in reading literature on the subject, there are a lot of things still waiting to be tapped. So I request you all that kindly, wherever you don't know the scientific name, talk to your friends and see, at least bring the photograph, description of the plant, and we will try to find the names of those. That is one thing we can do. Second, wherever there is a possibility of collaboration and doing some experiments, kindly take it up for experimental validation. Third, I'm going to send a message to Dr. Shekhar Mande today, being encouraged from this discussion, that we should think of a separate, one of you had asked this question, is there a separate funding available for validation and value addition in traditional knowledge? And I'm going to send a message to him tonight that let us try to find out and create a window of opportunity for validation and value addition in traditional knowledge, which can either substitute, supplement, or generate new solutions, affordable solutions, which are at par in scientific terms. So we will definitely like that something of that kind happens. At least we will try. I don't know, but we will try. We will definitely try. Third thing. Fourth thing I would say is that many experiments that you want to do actually don't require any funding. Some of your lab, some directors today, Dr. Sanjay Kumar from IHBT was with us in our BIS valedictory function, and I'm sure many people like him would be very encouraging of the experiments that you want to do. Almost every lab will encourage when you mention this course and you say that this came out in the class and we want to pursue it further. I'm quite confident, and Ashwini will also help us in taking this issue up with Dr. Sangwan and try to see whether ACSIR can develop a policy to support such students, some small experiments, some small projects which do not require too much resources. Existing facilities can be used, but with some additional cost of maybe procuring material or finding some supplementary material which you may not have in your lab. So that would be very, very useful. I strongly urge that you will do that. Last point is that it will be nice to do prior art search before you take up any experiment, because we should not rediscover the wheel. So you know that in research, we always do literature review, patent review. So likewise, you may do a review of literature to find out whether what you are wanting to spend your life in, maybe some part of your life in validation, that is worth your time. I mean, after all, each one of you has a very precious life, and even 1 minute, 1 hour of that life should be spent on something which is meaningful and something unique. So I would very much urge that let us try to find some novel dimension of what we want to do, even if some aspect are known, but some other aspect which you are thinking, which you are interested in, is not known. Go beyond that. If you can use your modern scientific knowledge in adding value and developing, as some of you mentioned about Chyawanprash and other things that you can develop in different forms of delivery, so that with less quantity, more benefit can come about. Why not? Why not? Why not? So thank you so much, friends. If you don't see, any chemistry lab can become a natural product lab, but in IMT, you are doing some work on the water treatment and other things. I have been to your lab. So maybe you can join hand with some other labs. There is a regional research lab, which is called earlier as in Bhubaneswar. So that lab could be used with some, or there is a KIT there, the Kalinga Institute of Technology, that could also be used. They have a very good biotechnology lab in Kalinga Institute, so they can be used. I can put your touch. Anybody who needs help of some lab to pursue your experiment, please let me know and I will connect you if you can't find yourself. This is very easy for us to do within CSIR, but also DBT lab and DST labs, we can connect you. So friend, thank you so much. Keep the pot boiling, keep the ideas emerging. And I'm sure there's so much more to learn than what we have done today. Thank you so much.